It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, I love it. It's a surprise on his own face when he hears his own intro music that gets me every time. It's Good Friday, a religious and public holiday, so hopefully you're savoring that, but that doesn't stop the flow of news in our country and abroad. It's been a bit of a crazy week, and our news editor-in-chief, Roy Simpson, is back with us to separate the good from the bad and give us some insights and how, I suppose, we fit into this big, crazy world of ours. Roy, all the best over this very special time.
Morning, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah,
Giving up your public holiday?
You're more than welcome. It's very nice to have you in the chair as well.
Thank you. I'm enjoying these conversations, but as always, we would love to have you join in on this discussion. So share your thoughts and opinions. Our WhatsApp line is open. Our number is 063-408-8863. Or you can do so on social media. But Roy, I want to jump straight into this because yesterday in the news, I heard our new Minister of Electricity saying that Eskom has got some tough decisions to make. Now, we know that the state of disaster has come to an end with immediate effect. So did anything positive come from the state of disaster?
Did anything come from it? Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've still got load shedding and it's not looking good.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an Easter miracle. There's no longer an electricity disaster. Man, the whole thing just really feels like government made a monstrous misstep on this. And there were questions that were raised the moment that they came out of the gates going, we need a state of disaster. In fact, when it was announced in the State of the Nation address, immediately organizations like OUTA began to gather their lawyers and started to head to court. And there's a distinct impression that this rescinding of the state of disaster has almost everything to do with OUTA's pursuit of the matter in court. Even in the address to the media afterwards, there was distinct reference to the fact that litigation is happening. They tried to cover it up and pretend that it wasn't. But I mean, it was only once it was very clear that they were headed to court that Cogta Minister Thembi Nkadimeng actually... And the announcement didn't even come from government. It came from OUTA. OUTA were the first ones to go public to say
claim their success.
The state of disaster is over. So government just really hasn't done well on this one at all.
And this opens, I suppose, another chink in the armour for the opposition to be able to hone in on. But what is the net gain or net loss? Has anything been achieved through this phase of disaster that just didn't really materialize? What has been the chief outcome?
Yeah, sorry. So you asked that. I didn't respond to that. Almost nothing. And astonishingly little has been done in terms of the state of disaster and the Disaster Management Act. So the two big things that happened was there was an attempt to exempt Eskom from reporting on irregular spending. That got pulled off the table, but that's happening under the Public Finance Management Act anyway. And then, of course, Kusile, the power station, has been granted an exemption in terms of its sulfur dioxide output, how much pollution it's putting into the air. And that's necessary to fast-track getting those three 800 megawatt generators back onto the grid. And that was Barbara Creasy, the Minister of the Environment, doing it under her normal legislation. So the two big things that have happened under normal legislation, and we've had this state of disaster where literally nothing has been done, as far as I know. Literally nothing has been done under the Disaster Management Act. So, yeah, I really don't know.
Don't watch the mouth, watch the hands, man. What are the hands
It is
doing?
like that.
Absolutely crazy.
Now, the big question is, we know load shedding is here to stay for quite some time. Are we any closer to not finding an end to load shedding, but putting a plan in place to start ending load shedding?
Yeah, look, the rejigging of the grid, for example, has been happening. That's going to allow renewables back onto the grid. But as you said, Minister Josiencho Ramakgopa pointing to the fact that coal is a big part of the future, and they're trying to balance out using coal to keep the lights on versus our commitments at COP26 to environmental targets.
Which have ramped up significantly,
Yeah, so that's going to be a balancing act. And on the table with the COP26 commitments are like 150 billion rand in money to redesign the grid to accept green power. So we're getting there.
But not fast enough.
No, and certainly from that press conference, perhaps there's a lot of obstacles to clear before we get there, yeah.
Darkest before the dawn, I think, is the
There we
term.
go.
There is probably a cliche for absolutely every story we tackle today, and you can share yours with us. We're going to go global in just a moment. Yes, not just South Africa going crazy at the moment, but we understand someone who shares a substantial border with Russia has also joined NATO. We'll find out more about that in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, we are back with your feel-good breakfast show, and it's some major news that we're taking a look at. Our news editor, Roy Simpson, he is here to help us decode them. And while we have our issues issues in Mzansi with our electricity crisis, the whole world seems to have issues of their own. It's not just us. So let's head on over to the global headlines. Now,
the world is in a crazy place right now, but it's feeling the pinch. And I think there seems to be a common human experience right now. The cost of living shot up. We want to just blame the Ukraine. I know it's a complex system, but that's feeling it now. We hear, obviously, that Finland has joined NATO, and that shares over 1,000 kilometers, I understand it, of border with Russia, which is ramping things up significantly, is it not? Or how does this fit into the ecosystem of the war? Are we expecting any kind of resolution sooner, or is this going to add fuel to the fire?
No, I think it's more the latter. I think it takes us further away from a resolution. Because, yeah, Tuesday they became the 31st member. As you say, what that does is that basically doubles NATO's border with Russia, because it's 1,340 kilometers that Finland shares with Russia. So that is a massive increase in NATO's presence literally on the borders with Russia. And the problem, of course, is that plays into Putin's home-based propaganda, which is that this is a US aggression and that the Ukraine is merely a sideshow.
It's an agenda, yeah.
And that's not going to help us. From our perspective, we want the grain ships to be moving. We want the sunflowers and the wheat fields to be harvested, to be loaded on ships and spread around the world. That's why we've got the massive food price inflation that we've got. And I'm afraid this takes us further away from that, if anything, because then it also emboldens the NATO members, because Finland actually, weirdly, has maintained quite a strong military.
And in quite a critical geographical position as well, you would think, for a small nation like that. But I just, in my heart, am feeling Putin's buttons being pushed. Even as we say this, you know this is going to just stimulate that insecurity, that kind of, that need for power in that space. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
No, you're absolutely right.
now, speaking of power, let's head on over to the US, where former President Donald Trump was he formally charged with 34, counts on Tuesday? And he pleaded not guilty. Is this a media hype, or is this just a storm in a teacup? Is it big? Is it small? Should we pay attention?
Down?
Well, we were all waiting for the word drama, weren't we? And it was very downplayed. It was a much more muted thing than we expected. Firstly, well played to him. Obviously, his lawyers had a clear word with him about how to behave. But all he needed to go in was look dignified, say not guilty. The 34 charges, though, are for falsifying business records. And that simply isn't, it's not a dramatic charge. That's not going to be ramped up to a felony charge there, for example. And the thing that all pins down towards is that 35th charge, which would be that all of those counts of fraud were designed to subvert the election, to help him get elected. But the problem is that law is a New York state law. And he was contesting for a federal position. So it's not clear that this court case is actually going to go anywhere, and that allowed him to head back to Mar-a-Lago and pick up the theme of, I am the victim of a conspiracy.
It's martyrdom,
Martyrdom. It's handed him exactly what he was looking for, and he played it with unruffled calm. He was dignified and professional in court anyway.
Because he's kind of seen this play out before, and he's got to know that anything that adds fuel to that fire is just going to be great PR. Is he going to be president of the US again?
Wow, that really is a question.
Sorry to put that on you, man, but it's
I think if he can take the Republican nomination, then he's in with a really good shot. And Ron DeSantis is the only real other contender. It's just been disappearing into the distance and just not performing. And as you say, Trump's going to get headline, headline, headline. And that's a lot. Just
That
staying
is
in
a
the
lot.
media is a lot of...
For him, especially with that face, man, and the deep fakes floating around.
Now, Roy, it is a Good Friday. We need to end it off with a cute or a good
Please.
story. I believe there's something very sweet that involves a cat.
There is. I want to end with this. I want us to watch this. If you thought Trump was unruffled, this is Sheikh Walid Mersas. He's in Algeria. He is delivering the Ramadan prayer. It's special. It's being televised. It's a big, big moment
It's one of the most
for him.
pivotal moments of the year.
And he gets hopped on, and just look at that calmness, the dignity, the absolute aplomb with which he handles this. Look, he might do the attire every morning, and he and the cat have this deal, and this is, you know, the daily. But I'll tell you what, Olympic-level composure and professionalism.
Sure.
And the cat jumps off.
And the timing right at the end, I know.
Yes.
But there was a moment of love, of recognition within that was just so human and so authentic and so nice and normal in this crazy world. That's beautiful.
It is. May we face all our challenges with the same level of grace
calm.
and style this weekend.
Oh, there we go. Roy, thank you for joining us
welcome.
once again, bringing all the necessary headlines to our table. And hopefully, you know, we will have more positive news as these segments unfold. But yes,
More
we need
cats.
you.
I demand a
Yes,
cat
more
every
cats,
day now, actually.